Hello, student org leaders, and welcome back to another S.O.L.D, also known as Student Org Leader Development Workshops. My name is Vashti Moffitt. I am a coordinator of student activities within student organizations on the admin services side of things. I am so excited to have you join us today for today's session. For today, the materials that you will need are a piece of paper and a pencil. In addition to, if you like to take notes on a computer or an iPad, that is definitely welcome, but we will have an activity that will require that piece of paper and that pencil or the writing utensil of your choice. So please go ahead and grab those items. While you are grabbing those items, please check in either with yourself or with those sitting next to you, and let's do a temperature check. How are we all feeling at this point within the semester? I won't be able to see you, but please be honest within yourself and rate how you feel from 1 to 5. You can utilize your fingers to show how you feel, holding up a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. Or if you're by yourself, you can simply just check in. But how are you feeling today? Today, I'm at a good 4. My birthday is tomorrow, and I'm feeling really, really good about what is to happen and what's going on in my life. But how are you feeling? Please take some time to check in and pause this video if needed. For my friends that are having some low numbers today, I'm sorry that you're experiencing that, and I hope that today helps to bump that number up at least 1 point. If everyone is ready, we have all of our materials. Let's go ahead and get started with today's S.O.L.D session. As always, what is S.O.L.D? If this is your first time listening to S.O.L.D or attending a S.O.L.D workshop, S.O.L.D is a leadership development initiative designed to equip student organization leaders with the skills, strategies, and support they need to lead with confidence, collaborate effectively, and create meaningful impact within their organizations and the campus community. So basically, this is just a developmental workshop that will help you in things such as event management, or emotion regulation, just maybe some things that you aren't learning in the classroom or you aren't learning directly from your org. And the things that you learn here can help to enhance that experience, not only as a student org leader, but as a student as well. This is our 5th session for this semester, and we are talking about self-aware, others-aware, leadership beyond logic. We have one more S.O.L.D session after this that will take place November 20th. It is called Beyond the Org, From Campus to Career. And in that session, we'll be talking about how the things that you learn within your student organizations, how they can benefit you within your career. Now, we have something very special coming for the spring semester, and what we are going to do in the spring is we have noticed that the time that S.O.L.D is currently being held is not the best time for students to meet due to work or classes or whatever responsibilities you might have outside of being a student org leader. So we want to compromise and meet you where you are. So there is a form that is going to be open on OrgSync that you can submit a request for myself or one of our employees here within the office to come meet you and your members and teach you the lesson that should be within that S.O.L.D topic. So let's say, for example, that 12 o'clock on Thursdays don't work for you, but 10 a.m. on Wednesdays do. That's great. Put in that request and we will definitely try our best to accommodate that, and we will meet you where you are, either in the student org space or a other designated classroom. But that information will come to you once your spot has been confirmed. And those S.O.L.D sessions, if you want to learn a little bit more about the description and the learning outcomes that you will receive from that, those are going to be on our webpage. And that will be sessions 7 through 12. As always, how will S.O.L.D benefit me? Number 1, stronger leadership skills and confidence. Number 2, enhanced collaboration and networking opportunities. And number 3, personal and professional growth for the future. So if you're ever in a S.O.L.D session and you're like, how is this going to benefit me? Always come back to one of those 3 things. Some S.O.L.D sessions will hit on one specifically, but some S.O.L.D sessions will more than likely hit on all 3 for your betterment. All right, and let's get started. Self-aware, others-aware. Leadership Beyond Logic with myself, Vashti Moffett, Coordinator of Student Organizations, Admin Services. All right, y'all, this is the time that you are going to need that paper and that pencil, so go ahead and grab that out for me. Let's go ahead and start with our icebreaker. For our icebreaker today, I have a stress test for you. So when I say go, you will have 2 minutes to write out the numbers 1 through 50. 1 through 50. All right, timer is on the screen. On your mark, get set, go. All right, we are at 50 seconds, a little less than halfway. All right, we're at that 25-second mark. How are we doing? All right, time is up. Time is up. How do we feel? We all right? Did everybody get 1 through 50? Let's go to the next one. We're going to repeat the activity, but this time you are going to be writing the numbers 1 through 75. You have 2 minutes for that also. All right, on your mark, sharpen your pencils if you need to. Get set and go. All right, we are down to 1 minute. All right, 30 seconds. 10 seconds. Pencils up, pencils up, pencils up. All right, how are we feeling? Were we able to get 1 through 75? All right, now we're going to do it one more time, but this time, because I believe you're up for the challenge, we are going to be writing the numbers 1 through 100 in 1 minute. Y'all think you can do it? I believe in you. I believe that you can. All right, ready? On your marks, take a deep breath. Go. 30 seconds, y'all. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. All right, time is up. Time is up. No more stress tests, but let's debrief that, okay? So, since I can't physically be there for you to share this experience with me, please write these answers down if you are by yourself or if you are with your fellow members or members from another organization. Go ahead and share your answers for these questions. You can, forgive me, you can pause the video at this time. I'm going to read them aloud and allow a few minutes, but please feel free to pause the video so that y'all can have an open and honest discussion. So, number one, how did your body react when the timer started? So, this is physically. What does that look like for you? Did your ears get hot? Did your shoulders tense up? Did you get pain in your neck? Let's talk about what did our body feel. Next, what emotions came up? Did we start overthinking? Did this take us back to school when they had us flip over the math equations and we had to solve them? What emotions, right? And then lastly, how do moments like that show up in your leadership roles? Meaning, how do moments like the stress test show up where it can affect your physical and emotional body? Please feel free to pause the video at this time and answer those questions. I'll see y'all in a few minutes. All right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward. I hope you were all able to have great discussions. I actually like stress tests. I don't know. What do y'all think? Y'all like them? Now that I'm older, I like them, but when I was younger, not at all. So, this icebreaker goes into what we are talking about today because we are talking about leadership beyond logic. So that stress test goes great with what we are going to be talking about today because we are talking about self-aware, others-aware, leadership beyond logic. This means we're going to be able to tap into some of the emotional needs that our members may have or experience depending on the situation, and how can you as a student leader help them to navigate that. But first, in order for us to know how to navigate that, we must first be aware of ourselves. So that is going to be the first part of any situation that you find yourself in as a student org leader. We first want to have awareness. And awareness looks like reading the room. And we'll go into some examples of reading the room. And then that second part is the response. We want to be the example, be the good example that we want to set forth. That doesn't mean that we as people, we don't have bad days. Maybe we slip up, maybe we say something we're not supposed to or that hurts someone, right? And then that can go into a whole other part of taking accountability and apologizing. But for today, we are just going to focus on awareness of reading the room, and we're going to focus on the response of how to be the example, how to be a healthy example. So, how we will do this is I have three different scenarios that I'm going to read aloud. Then we are going to look into what does awareness look like for this specific scenario and how do different responses cause different reactions, either from ourselves or from members. So, scenario number one says, you're leading a meeting and you notice your team is quiet, distracted, or disengaged. Cameras are off, phones are out, and participation feels minimal. The silence feels heavy, and you start to question whether you're connecting with your team. All right, boom. So, step one is awareness. Read the room. So when we are trying to be aware of a situation, we need to ask ourselves, what are some things that you should be aware of in this situation? And you can identify that by strictly going back to what we know, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. Who is involved? What is going on? When is this happening? Where is this happening? And why? And those are very specific things, right? But they can be broken down into little pieces. And sometimes, as student org leaders, we will have to break things down into bite-sized things before we can handle the big issue. So, for example, the when, that could literally mean when is this happening on what time, what day, right? Or, but it also could be when is this happening in regards to something that's happening on campus? What is the culture of the campus? Is this the right time for us to be having this conversation? Is this the right time for us to be hosting this event? So I'm going to put the scenario back on the screen. And I want you to think about the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. I'll leave it back on the screen for about a minute, and then we will move on to what awareness of the room looks like for this. All right, now let's see what awareness could look like for this scenario. So, how awareness could look for this specific scenario is what cues tell you that the energy in the room is low. So, one, we know that because people aren't paying attention, they're disengaged, they're on their phone, and they're quiet. Next, what emotions are you experiencing as the leader in that moment? This is so important because not only are you student org leaders, but you're people, which means you're bound to feel something. We all want to be heard. We all want to be acknowledged. So first ask yourself, how do I feel to not be acknowledged? Next, how might your tone, facial expressions, or body language shift as a result of those feelings? So for me, I am very facial in regards to how I'm feeling. I can tell you that I'm fine, but you might be able to see it on my face that I'm not. So something that I have to be aware of are, even though I'm saying that I'm fine, are my emotions making my face show something different? And if they are, how can I neutralize my face and my emotions so that I can still speak to everyone effectively? That doesn't mean that I'm getting rid of my emotions or that I'm not acknowledging my emotions. It just means I need to pivot and shift in the moment. And that's okay too, y'all. And lastly, what might be causing the disengagement? So is it timing? Is it the topic? Is it the burnout, the lack of clarity, or is it something else? So there's a lot that we have to analyze just within a few seconds before we can respond. But once we feel like we have a good reading of the room, we're really aware of our environment and who's around, now let's go on to our response. So the response, we want to be the example. So now what I would like for you to do is I have some more questions that I would like for you to answer within your group or within yourself. So number one, how do you regulate your triggers in that moment so you don't react impulsively? So talk with your team. What are some coping mechanisms that we all could have to keep us aligned? Do you need to keep a fidget spinner? Do you need to keep some kinetic sand, something to keep you busy, right? Do you need a friend to maybe text you a code word when they realize that your face is getting a little unpleasant? Next, how can you re-engage your group in a way that invites participation instead of demanding it? Something that you could really do, y'all, really easy is just say, hey, y'all, let's play a quick game. Especially if this meeting is happening in person, sometimes a change of environment may need to be what happens. Next, what can you say or do to be the example, showing calm curiosity and empathy rather than frustration? So let's say that you're talking about something that's not as fun, right? Like you're talking about the boring stuff, the paperwork, the legal matters. You can be straight up honest with your team and say, hey, y'all, I know this is not a lot of fun for us to talk about right now, but in order for us to get to the fun stuff, we have to talk about this. Next, how might you follow up afterward to check in on your team's needs or motivation? What that can simply look like is before ending the meeting, you could say, hey, y'all, I really want to appreciate everybody locking back in and paying attention and giving me their all after that hiccup that we had in the beginning. Something like that goes a really long way and it helps your team to recognize that you see them and you acknowledge them. Now, if you have any other ideas or thoughts, please pause the video at this point and share those ideas with your team. Maybe you have a specific example that's similar to this. Feel free to go ahead and talk about that. All right, let's go on to our next scenario. So this one says, two different executive boards are meeting to plan a collaborative event. During the discussion, members from each organization begin to disagree about event roles, responsibilities, and creative direction. Voices start to rise, side conversations happen, and the atmosphere becomes tense. You're in the room as a leader helping coordinate the meeting. That's very important. Your role in the meeting is you are a leader helping to coordinate the meeting. So, awareness: who, what, when, where, and why. Pause the video at this time and go through the 5 W's of this situation. All right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and see what are some things that we can keep in mind for this situation. So again, what cues tell you that tension is building between the groups? This is physical cues, right? And physical cues doesn't always look like somebody raising their voice. What physical cues could look like is somebody constantly shifting in their seat. Are they constantly moving around? Is someone tapping their foot? Can you tell that somebody is thinking something, but maybe they don't want to say it? What do those cues look like? Next, what emotions might each side be feeling? Frustration, protectiveness, or a lack of control. In order for you to know what other emotions the other side might be feeling, you first need to know that organization or know someone from there that can kind of help to guide that. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to assume that this is how someone is feeling. And what you could do, you could ask questions. Hey, how are y'all feeling about this? And ask everyone to be honest. Something else to be aware of: how does your own energy or facial expressions shift as tension rises? So, are you someone that when tension rises, it's easy to tell that you are perhaps timid and you don't want to be a part of this? Or does it show that you are prepared and you want to be able to help mediate this? And lastly, how might your response or lack thereof influence the overall tone of the meeting? Now, I really want to hit on this or lack thereof. I know sometimes it can be a little intimidating to speak how we want to and to speak clearly and freely. Not all of us have that same confidence gene, right? But we're working to grow it, and that's why we're here today, which is fine. But also, it's important to acknowledge that sometimes your silence can be taken as an answer. So even if you say, hey, I don't specifically agree with either side, but I do think we need to handle this so that we can have a successful event, that is much more effective than you not saying anything at all, especially because you are a leader of one of these organizations. So we need to hear from you. And a leader doesn't always mean that you're the president or the vice president. A leader is somebody who takes lead, period. That's what it is. So even if you are a member and an officer has asked you to sit in on another meeting, you are a leader. Absolutely, 100%. You do not have to have the title of being the president to be a leader within your organization. All right, next, let's look at the response. So, how can you be the example by staying grounded and modeling calm communication? And remember that communication isn't always verbal. Next, what language or actions could you use to de-escalate the conflict while keeping both parties respected? Sometimes what that looks like, y'all, is simply saying, hey, this is a good point that we are discussing, but there is more on the agenda that we need to talk about today. So respectfully, I'm going to ask that we put a pin in it and that we move on to the next topic. That way we don't spend our whole meeting talking about this. But since this is something that we need to clarify at the end of today's meeting, let's go ahead and schedule a follow-up meeting that we can dedicate solely to this one topic. Does that make sense? All right. The next one, how can you redirect the focus toward collaboration and the shared goal of a successful event? So that is just that redirection, kind of what I just talked about, because what we don't want to happen is for people to get frustrated and now the orgs pull out, because conflict is just a normal part of life. And where else better to learn about it than in your student organizations? And just like our last one, after the meeting, what follow-up might help maintain trust and prevent resentment between the organizations? This can be as simple as, just like the last scenario, thank y'all so much for being willing to discuss this, or thank y'all so much for scheduling a follow-up meeting. It could be something as just thanking everyone for their time. If you want to be more formal, you can send an email with the agenda items that were discussed and then the agenda items that are still needing to be discussed to ensure everyone is on the same page. But what do you think you could do? So this is another great time to go ahead and pause the video and discuss these things with your team members, or if you're by yourself, go ahead and write your answers down. All right, and let's go to our last scenario for the day. Scenario number 3. You're a president whose personality is very different from your team's. You might be an introverted leader managing a group of highly outgoing, energetic members, or the reverse, an extroverted leader working with a quieter, more reserved team. You notice that your energy doesn't always match theirs, and it sometimes leads to disconnects in communication, collaboration, or motivation. So again, go ahead and pause the video and talk about the who, what, when, where, and why. What are some things that you think you need to be aware of with this scenario specifically? All right, let's see. These are just a few additional ones. So the first one is, what do you notice about the energy dynamic between you and your team? Like, how is it very noticeable that you have two different personality differences, right? For example, I'll use me. I'm very extroverted. So something as small as someone sharpening a pencil that they've been trying to sharpen for 2 weeks, I will go over the moon excited. I'll jump up and down and clap and scream and all that, right? Versus some of my other coworkers, they may just be like, oh, that's cool. So, what are moments that you have noticed the energy dynamic between your team? Number 2, how does that difference make you feel? Do you feel drained, overlooked, misunderstood, or out of sync? Just be honest with yourself. Don't try to cover it up or don't try to, well, maybe they meant this. No, just be honest. How does that make you feel? Next, what might your team be feeling? All right, now we got to flip it. Okay. Let's say, for example, I'm very extroverted. I'm leading a team that's introverted. How could that make my team feel? If I'm always excited, right, and kind of like a golden retriever, a puppy dog, that might make my introverted team feel a little anxiety. Even though that's not my intent, I have to understand that that's not how they operate. That's not kind of how they think things through. That doesn't mean that I change who I am, but that does mean that I code switch certain things. Next, how do these differences show up in meetings or group interactions? So when we are in a group setting, when we are at these type of events, what does this look like? How does this show up? And where are people best going to be used based upon their personality? Lastly, what assumptions might you be making about what effective leadership looks like? We all are told kind of how to be a great leader. You got to make sure you have an agenda, an itinerary, those kind of things. But right now, what we're talking about are the personable things. Effective leadership does not look the same for everyone. We all lead differently. And so maybe you have been leading an introverted team and you're also an introvert, but that needs to shift and that needs to look different for this new team of extroverts that you have. How can you all compromise and work together for the betterment of the organization? Feel free to go ahead and pause the video at this time and speak with your other members or jot your answers down for yourself. All right, and for our responses, so some things that we can ask ourselves in those moments are when the room is losing focus or energy, what is one non-demanding way you can pull them back in? And what that can look like is simply could be as having a call and response. So if you're an introverted president and maybe you have extroverted other team members or general members and saying they get really loud, and you don't have the energy, nor do you want to say, hey guys, let's pay attention, you could simply say, ba da ba ba ba. And what are they going to say back? I'm loving it, right? Or you could say, Red Robin. Do y'all know that one? And they'll say, yum. So it's a simple call and response. What you will see is a lot of teachers do this in their classroom when the kids get loud. That way, it's something that you can build up naturally. So every time you say ba da ba ba ba, it doesn't just remind them, okay, the McDonald's jingle. It reminds them, hey, we need to focus and pull this back in. Second, if you felt dismissed or unheard by your team, how would you keep yourself grounded? How would you do that in that moment? I don't want to give an answer for that one because it's going to be different for each one. So answer that for yourself specifically. How would you keep yourself grounded? Number three, what check-in questions could you ask after a tense meeting to make your team feel supported? So here's what I have noticed, y'all, that will make someone feel like they are a part of the team or that they are important or that they are acknowledged. For every one critique that you give someone, you should be giving them three compliments. Most of the time, what leaders do are they do the opposite. So they'll give you one praise, but they'll give you three different critiques. So it feels as though you're not doing as well as you think you are or as you truly are, right? Because that acknowledgement isn't there. So what you could do in this moment is you could say, hey, as a team, we didn't get this done and that was a little disappointing, but I am proud of the team for handling this, right? Because maybe you didn't get something done because you had to finish something up from last week. Maybe you didn't get a task done this week because you had to catch up from something that was missed last week. So in a sense, you dropped the ball on handling what you needed to handle this week, but you still did well because you got a last minute task and handled that. Does that make sense? I hope so, y'all. I apologize. And lastly, how do you balance being authentic with being adaptable? So if you are an introverted president and you have an extroverted team, how can you balance still being introverted, still being yourself, but also being adaptable to what the extroverted team members like also? Because it will help you to have extroverted team members as that will help you to grow within your position as well. So what does that look like for you? What does balance look like? All right, y'all, that is all that I have for you today in regards to learning new information. I do want to ask a few debrief questions, so please feel free again to pause the video, discuss this with your team members, or simply just write your answers down if you're by yourself today. My first question is, what did you notice about your own emotions, thoughts, or behaviors throughout today's activity? Think about it from the beginning of the stress test all the way throughout. What did you notice about your own emotions or behaviors? Second, so what does this teach you about your leadership style and how your emotions influence others? From what you noticed about yourself today, what does that teach you about your leadership style? And with that being said, now what steps will you take to model emotional intelligence and be the example in your organization or community? That is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. As always, go mean green.